Hey, FlimsyLunchTray here, and welcome to World of Warships, where I'm doing a reverse. So I just felt like doing what I normally do on Saturday, today on Friday, which is an upgrade and commander build video. I do already have one for this ship over 3 years ago, but I felt like it was worth updating. Maybe not too much has changed, and maybe my commentary will be a bit shorter compared to the older video. And what ship is it I'm talking about? I'm talking about the Tier 10 American light cruiser, the Worcester. Now, I really don't care in the sense of every time I do this video, I have the hull police shouting in the comments, "Flimsy, it's pronounced this way, it's pronounced that way, this, that, and the other," and I don't really care, so go fly a kite. You get the British in here and the Europeans saying you pronounce it this way, you get the Americans in here pronouncing it this way, and this is an American ship. I don't care about your British pronunciation when it comes to the Tier 10 light American cruiser, the Worcester. So anyhow, I'm not going to say the name of that ship again, but we're going to do an overview on the ship. I just got done playing it and had some really good battles. All except one battle, I placed top of the team. I think this was actually my best battle. I did over 200,000 damage. And I just want to talk more about this ship in 2024. Whatever. I'll talk about the build, or not the build, the play style tomorrow, so to speak. But for now, let's just hop right into it. So what type of cruiser are we having on our hands here? Where it's a light cruiser. And with her 152 millimeter guns, this is going to be a mid-range to long-range cruiser because the way the game has evolved. Ideally, you play this ship quite close to key objectives like caps and islands and smoke screens, key objectives, right? But sometimes you're just going to not be in a favorable situation and you're going to be kiting away using your WASD hacks because you're coated in 25 millimeter armor. So basically, it can be overmatched by anything above a 357 will overmatch you. So I was quite angled in like this, and I got citadeled by a GK with a 420. I think he went through the deck or something. I don't know. I was kind of surprised. I thought it was going to bounce, but it didn't. And you have plenty of 406s, 420s, 431s, and 460s, and 457s, and 510s coming into the game more and more and more. So the overmatch is really killing the ship a lot. But alas, I digress. Let's just talk about the ship specs, build, and so forth. So 25 millimeter, you have 30 millimeter deck casemate armor, and then you have 127 millimeter this armor belt. So sometimes you can troll in bounce if you're angled properly when you have certain battleships or heavy cruisers, battle cruisers you're going up against. But otherwise, you're trying to use your rudder, your speed, propulsion, islands, smoke, all those type of things to avoid taking a lot of damage. Your guns can't easily be knocked out, 127 and then just only 38 millimeter on the side, which wraps around the back as well. So you do have to be mindful, but you do have, 6 turrets, right? So we're talking about having access to 12 guns here as a whole. But I should also point out the Citadel. It's not going to surprise you. It is definitely above water Citadel. Now they did something interesting here on the ship where they actually step it down on the rear turrets because you're often, let's say you might be kiting away. So it's surprising that it doesn't go all the way up to the ones in the back, but you see the ones in the front, it does. So they just decided to do something different there. So I don't mind because it is easy to get citadeled here in this light cruiser. So let's go and talk about her modules. So she is a tier 10 ship. So with the build we have set up right now, we have a 4-second reload time on these 152s, 8.3 second 100 degree turn time, HE shell damage 2,200, maximum AP shell damage 1,000, damage 3,200, talking a bit fast. Our hull, we don't have survivability expert on our commander at the moment. I don't know if I actually ever will run that skill. I'll talk about why. But we have 45,400 hit points. With survivability expert, it'd push you up to 50,000. Main battery firing range, 16.7. We don't take the range mod. And then in terms of propulsion, if I rip that all off, without the Serum mic, it's 33 knots. I mean, it's kind of amazing. You're getting more battleships that can easily outrun this ship. So like the new Tier 10 Pan American I don't even know how to pronounce that one, can outrun the rooster, right? So, but with the Sierra mic, we can go through 34.7 knots. So that's kind of definitely, we take that. Now, in terms of the upgrades, I run the main Armaments Mod 1 in the first slot. This is mainly just to keep the guns going. Reduces the risk of our main battery becoming incapacitated by negative 20%. Main battery survivability plus 50%. Main battery repair time negative 20%. So really, that's what we're going for here. I mean, you could, like, I want to build into my AA. If you wanted to do a full AA build ship with here, you can, but I don't. We wouldn't take magazine mod 1 because we just take the Juliet Charlie combat signal, which completely eliminates the risk of our ship's magazine detonating, and we wouldn't bother with those. If you don't have any coal to take a special upgrade, then what I would recommend is the engine room protection, 25 millimeters stern. So it is easy to have your steering gears and engine knocked out. So taking the engine room protection is going to reduce the chances of those being knocked out by 20% and improve the repair time by negative 20%. If you have the coal to spend, then I'd recommend taking the Surveillance Radar Mod 1. It extends our radar time by plus 20%. And so right now you're going to see we have an action time of 48 seconds. So I'll just show you what it's at. It's in the upgrades in the armory. I'm just using this as an example to go off of here to get us in here. It's 17,000 coal, but it's 27,000 or 12,750 with the coupon. So I try to burn one of these once a month. So I would recommend trying to do that if you're upgrading your ships. But if you just started playing, then it's not a massive huge thing, but it does help you in the competitive sense, and it actually did help out in multiple of those matches I just had while playing here. Third slot, I go for the Aiming Systems Mod 1. This reduces our maximum main battery shell dispersion by negative 7%. I'll put it at the bottom right here to show you what it looks like with and without. So we're decreasing our maximum vertical and maximum vertical and horizontal dispersion. So we're getting tighter shell groupings along with our Sigma, right? So this is good, in my opinion, to run, especially when dealing with destroyers and catching them out with radar, things like that. I'll probably talk about that tomorrow in the video highlight. If you're doing an AA build, you could take the AA Guns Mod 1, but I mean, it's hard with World of Warships because I had a couple matches without CVs and a couple with, right? And these you'd always get benefits out of. So in general, I would recommend just going for the Aiming Systems Mod 1. The fourth slot, Damage Propulsion Mod 1. This is going to reduce your engine power. No, I need to say this again. Time taken to reach full engine power when accelerating, negative 50%. So that's when you're using a lot of WS key hacks or WSAD. You are accelerating, you are deaccelerating, so on and so forth. Like I think, as an example, with the potential damage I took was 2 million in this game, just because I was constantly using my WSAD hacks, right? We avoided multiple salvos in this game. So that's a good example of taking that here. I don't really recommend any of the others here. This one is just solid all around, and you don't want to be just sitting still constantly in a cruiser. You want to be moving around. Maybe you have some smoke or an island you're using in a particular position, but otherwise you're typically always going forward, backwards. You're never really sitting still in a light cruiser, especially the high tier meta here in World of Warships. Now in the fifth slot, I take the Concealment System Mod 1. This reduces the ship's detectability range by negative 10%, squadron detectability range negative 10%, dispersion of shells fired by enemies attacking your ship plus 5. Okay, so what it means is by sea 9.8, by air in depths 6.9 or down to 0.0, depends on the submarine, right? So that's actually pretty good because our AA is a 6.9 kilometer AA range. So once the CV spots you, your AA guns are just about to start engaging because there's like a 1 or 2 second delay on the AA. So overall, this is what most players I would recommend to take here in Warships to run. Now, if you're doing, I don't know if I would say the ship is so great for a lighthouse build. I mean, it's definitely worth considering. You'd get your rudder shift time and steering gears repair time down as well, should they be knocked out. Our maneuverability right now is a 8.1 second on the rudder shift time. So you would be getting close to having that, right? So maybe around 5 something seconds off the top of my head. So that's actually really good. So it's possible. It just depends on how comfortable you feel doing that, because it just takes, you know, a German random dispersion salvo that's not super accurate, like a Wisconsin as an example, or maybe is not as accurate as a Montana, to just still catch you out. So I don't necessarily recommend a lighthouse build, but it is possible. And a lighthouse build is basically you first take concealment and you just want to be detected because you're trying to go for more of a DPM, damage per minute build. The 6 slot, there's a couple options to talk about here. The first is what you see me running. It's the main battery mod 3. Our main battery reload time is reduced by negative 12%, but as a cost, our main battery traverse speed is reduced by negative 13%. So that means we get that 180 degree turn time of 8.3 seconds. But our reload time for the guns is 4 seconds. And then you take things into account like adrenaline rush, right, which we have, then we can start getting the reload time down even more. I had an arms race game where I think it was like 2.6, 2.7 because of the buffs and the amount of HP that I had lost. So it can get pretty spicy quite quickly. So in general, I really like running this. There are other players I know who take the gunfire control system mod 2. They want to extend their main battery firing range by plus 16%. I'll try to remember to put off to the right here. What would that translate to? And I'm guessing it'd be over 18, if 18.5 to around 19-ish. So one of the things I don't like about going for range build here on the ship is our initial shell velocity is 812 meters a second, and it's slower for the AP. You wouldn't be firing AP long range, right? It'd be the high explosive. Is the shell travel time. So it's just hard to land the shells accurately once you start getting out beyond the 16.7 that they already give you. So I tend to shy away from this because it can also encourage players to play further back away from key objectives and key areas like capture zones and choke points, things like that. Then we also have the Auxiliary Armaments Mod 2. This is particularly for the AA build. I did run this at one point, but I kind of, for an AA cruisers, I like running Brisbane or Minotaur. I think they have a bit better AA than here. So this is something also to consider as well, but again, it relies on having ships or CVs or hybrid ships in your match, which, I mean, we're seeing Hildebrand a lot right now. So these two would be a bit more consistent to get better use out of, and I like the main battery mod 3. Another thing to talk about is the enhanced countermeasures. It's in the Research Bureau for 19,200 Research Bureau points. Goes in your 6th slot. Improves the ship's tactical role by increasing the efficiency of the AA guns and consumables. So you get one more consumable, so that's one more hydro, radar, defensive AA, and then ship consumables preparation reload time is reduced by negative 20%, so you get him off cooldown a lot faster. And then your priority A sector preparation time is reduced by negative 20%. So you're able to prioritize your A sector to do more damage, more consistent, more quickly, right? I don't think this is like an amazing unique upgrade here to be running. And I'll kind of explain why, because there's something we can do with our commander build that helps with the ship consumables preparation reload time. Granted, this is just a straight outright negative 20% that you're always going to have. So don't know how much I'd recommend it. There's much better unique upgrades to run on other ships that you should invest before getting here to the Worcester. In terms of armament, we have high explosive, armor piercing, and depth charge airstrikes. Now, the high explosives, you're going to see a bit funky here because I run the inertia fuse high explosive skill here on the commander. So we're penetrating 37 millimeter. So I don't really do a fire build here because there are newer ships in the game that can do a better job with the fire spamming. I was just talked about 2 of them the other day. And I'm completely spacing off the top of my head right now. Oh yeah, as the tier 9 Dockyard de Almonte Ocondo, or like the Encounter or Cerberus. Those are better at the spamming high explosive fire chances, right? Otherwise, we'd have a 12% if we didn't have IFHE. Here you see 6%. But we're penetrating 37mm armor, so we're causing a lot more overall damage. So we're not farming for fires. Those other ships like to play for farming fires. So we're actually, our high explosive alpha strike is a little bit more consistent, especially among cruisers that have, the 27mm and higher. I don't remember what it is before and without, so you have to forgive me. But we're passing 32mm. That's what I want to say. We're passing the 32mm threshold that you see at a lot of high tier ships here in World of Warships. So I quite like it. Armor piercing. It's good. Definitely use it when you have the opportunity. We're in range of maybe like a broadside cruiser battleship. I just had a game, I think it was this one, where we had a broadside Minotaur. Yeah, this guy. And we got like 5 citadels, only 11 shells, but we did 20k. So like, Minotaur is quite meme worthy in the sense of citadeling it. So it's definitely worth utilizing when possible. Depth charge airstrike. This one has an 8-kilometer range. You get 2 available flights, and then number of attacking aircraft per flight is 1. And it has 2 bombs per payload, so 4 bombs in total if you drop both flights. A lot of submarines today that I was playing against, so I was getting a lot of sub damage in. Maybe I would like to see a 9 or 10 kilometer, but that's more something you see on the ships, I think, with the submarine surveillance. In terms of consumables, standard damage control party, 5-second action time, 60-second cooldown time. Repair party is HP per second is 227. If we run an India Delta combat signal, it bumps it up to 272. With an action time of 28 seconds, a cooldown time of 80 seconds, and we get 4 as we run Superintendent on our commander. Head acoustic search, 3.5 kilometers for detecting torpedoes. Detection of ships, 5 kilometers. You spot subs at their maximum depth at 2 kilometer. Right now, it's an action time of 100 seconds with a cooldown time of 111 seconds. Normally it would be 120 seconds, but that's also because of a 1-point skill I'm running on the commander, but that won't be permanently in place. I'm just running it in the meantime until I get to a 21-point commander here, and we get 4. Then you get the option to switch between surveillance radar, fighter, and spotting aircraft. If you're not running surveillance radar, I would just ask you why. It's really the best one to run here. So you detect enemy ships away from 9 kilometers. So when you go for a full conceal build, that means you have a 0.8 kilometer gap between your radar and an enemy ship detecting you. So you're trying to catch the DZs off guard, stepping out from behind islands or smoke screens, things like that. I did that several times earlier when we wiped out a few DDs just because they don't respect the radar. Otherwise, these DDs would have just gotten away if I hadn't had the radar. So it's really what you want to run. With the more radar build, it's a 48-second action time. Our cooldown time is 111 seconds, and then number of consumables is 4. Otherwise, your normal cooldown time would be 120. You have defensive AA fire, so continuous damage is plus 50%. Shell explosion damage plus 300%. Action time of 40 seconds, cooldown time of 74 seconds. Normally it would be 80, and we get 5 of them here because of running Superintendents. So this is a very strong AA cruiser. You have an A defense rating right now of 91, but there's a few things we can do to bump that even further to get it almost maxed out to 100. I don't know if you can actually max it out at 100, but you can get awfully close. And so speaking of which, since we're talking about AA, you'd run this combat signal. Continuous A damage plus 5%. Damage from A shell explosions plus 5%. So here, pay attention to these two. 385 and 1890. 404 at 1985. Okay, I think with this one, and if you ran the AA, it should bring you up to like 443 and 2,174 when I was looking at some stuff earlier off the top of my head. So we could bump that up even more, right? But you can see the A defense rating went from 91 to 92 just by taking the combat signal. Otherwise, I like running the November Foxtrot. Ship consumable preparation reload time, negative 5%. So now with that 1-point skill, you see we go down to 70 seconds, 105 seconds, 105 seconds, 76 seconds, 57 seconds across the board here. The other thing I like running is the Sierra Bravo. So we're extending our hydroacoustic search consumable time. So we've gone from 100 seconds to 110 seconds. And then I always run the Hotel Yankee. There's just sometimes you find yourself in a situation, you ram an enemy battleship, take him with you. Damage caused by ramming an enemy, plus 50%. Damage received when ramming an enemy, negative 20%. Kind of funny, you could get a die-hard ramming a destroyer, right? And running this. And this only leaves us with one slot left for combat signals. So then it's like, okay, well, I can run this and to get my fire chance up to 7%. Otherwise, if you're like, don't really want to take Hotel Yankee, then just do both of those. So then you get up to, wait, why does it still say 7? 6%? Here. Am I doing a dodo? Oh, yeah. It has to be more than 160 millimeters. So, yeah, this is great. Excuse me, I forgot about that. Okay, let's get into the commander because I really want this video to be underneath 30 minutes, certainly. So this isn't the ultimate build I'm going to run, so just be mindful of that here. I'll talk about a few different options. There's something else I'm wanting to do here, although most the essential ingredients I would say are here. So let me just walk you through what I would do for a 10-point commander first. Let's say you just picked up the ship and you're wondering what would you do. I would first recommend Last Stand. Ship remains partially able to sustain speed and maneuverability with the engine and steering gears incapacitated. With a light cruiser, again with that armor scheme of just 25 millimeter and torps, guns, all those type of stuff, you will have your steering gears or your engine knocked out. So it's quite vital you run this, otherwise you'll be dead in the water sitting still, or you're going around circles, show broadside to enemy team, they kill you. So this really is a mandatory one. Now there's some discussion around this if you would want to use, go for a 2-point skill in a different slot, which you're either talking about consumables enhancements, or you'd be talking about the focus fire training. Myself, I like running priority target, but I'm probably a skilled enough player as long as you're paying attention to enemy and your map positioning. If you've overextended yourself and your teammates around you are dark and you're the only one firing, right, then it could probably go without this. I had a match where the battleship on my team dove in on my flank, died, and then it was like, oh, I'm detected right now because I'm firing, and now I went from 3 aiming at me to 6 aiming at me. I should probably go dark, right? It's just a nice, helpful skill I'm in running here. So in general, for most players, I would recommend it. If you feel you're more skilled, seasoned with your WSAD hacks and map awareness and position, paying attention to enemy team players aiming at you, then you could probably give up priority target, and I would say go for focus fire training. I'll talk about that skill in a minute. Adrenaline Rush for a 6-point commander build. For each 1% of HP lost, you are going to be reloading your main battery faster, your high explosive, not high explosive, your air depth charge strike, however you want to phrase it. And then also you're getting a slight buff to your AA damage. So I quite like it. It works really well if you find yourself in an arms race. And just in general, because, ideally you will be losing a little bit of health in the game, so just increase your damage per minute and making your 12 152mm guns a little bit more dangerous and deadly. 10-point commander, concealment expert, and this drops your detectability range down to what we're working with at the 6.9 by air and sea, or by air, and then the depths is where the 6.9 comes in, and then 9.8 kilometer by sea. So with a lot of the overmatch, again, a high tier, you get punished a lot more easier if you step out of line on light cruisers, so I think it's best to do a concealed build here on the ship. So that's what I would do with my first 10 points. After that, the ship is really consumable heavy, right? When we take Superintendent, let's say this is a 13 commander point build, then you can see we get a 5th defensive AA, a 4th radar, a 4th heal, and a 4th hydroacoustic search. I'm a cruiser player player in general who tends to live through the last half of the battle, and I burned through multiple heals in my games earlier. I even got Dreadnought here on this ship in one of the matches. So I really like having that 4th heal, but then having the tactical advantage of having a 4th hydro for a sub, or a 4th radar for a sub, or destroyer, or whatever, is really helpful, and you don't feel that you have to be as conservative with your defensive AAs when you get 5. So for a 13-point build, I would recommend that. Now this is the build I've gone for. This is the IFHE build. There's probably going to be some different ways you could start going off now, but I think those 13 points, if ignoring these two, I think are like, they're kind of a must, right? But in terms of if you want to do an IFHE build, it's a 4-pointer, so this takes you from a 13-point to 17-point commander in this example, where you see your main battery high explosive shell armor penetration capability is plus 25%. Now I don't actually think we have our secondaries. You don't get any secondaries here on the ship, so I'll just have to double check that. So that's what bumps us past the 32mm threshold, where we're able to pin 37mm, and if there's any above, where we can pin up to max of 37mm here in the game. So I quite like running IFHE on Worcester, something like that. So it's up to you, just because I think there's better fire, tier 10 fire cruisers in the game if you really want to start farming in the game. Like Cerberus, that'd be my go-to, probably cruiser HE spamming fire starter ship, off the top of my head. Then after this, you can see right now what I've done is I have 1 point on the consumable specialist. This is where we're seeing that slight reload time on our defensive AA, hydro, and radar. But I don't ultimately want this in my build. My ultimate build would be to go for the A defense and ASW expert. Now, when I did this video over 3 years ago, there was a change on here they didn't have at the time, and that was the can be activated portion. So the permanent effect of this is our air depth charge damage goes up by plus 15%. You're running into submarines a lot more as this mid-range cruiser fighting around key objectives. Submarines are fighting for key objectives, right? Depth charge damage, plus 15%. Continuous AA damage, plus 25%. Damage from AA shell explosions, plus 25%. And then the can be activated portion is improves your ship's characteristics when her AA guns are active. So that means if someone's dropping depth charge planes on you, a spotter plane, a fighter plane, a hybrid, a CV, come to attack you, then your ship consumable preparation reload time is dropped by negative 50%. So that means you're getting your consumables off of cooldown that much faster. So your heals, your hydros, your radar, your defensive AAs. So that's really strong. And they didn't have this back in the day with the ship. And it was still a possible option, of course, if you're doing an AA build. But I definitely plan to take this. So when I give up the consumable specialist, right, then I release myself to having 4 points again to take 17 to a 21-point commander. But in the meantime, I've just been running this as it were. Now, let's say you like this build and you don't care about that having your consumables off cooldown that much more quickly. You could take Survivability Expert. This would be a solid build. So that's when our HP jumps up to, as I said, almost 50,000. It's 49,900. So this would be a solid build to have here. I don't know, if you give up this, right, and then you went for top grade gunner, is that really worth it? Because that means you want to be detected, because increases main battery reload time while an enemy ship is within your ship's stated detectability range. So this is usually more of a lighthouse, right? And I would feel more comfortable doing a lighthouse on the Henri, on Hindenburg, other tier 10 ships that have a little bit more capability of armor scheme. Nevsky, as an example, Saint Louis. I think other ships do the lighthouse build better, and I don't know how comfortable I'd feel with utilizing this when there's so much overmatch in the game and you're not brawling with the ship. That's not necessarily the goal. If you wanted to go for a more of a fire build, right, you could. I would still say there's other tech tree ships in the game that do the role better, but you'd probably be looking to take Demolition Expert, and then you're dropping the IFHE to then, which I would say, drop IFHE, go ahead and go over here, pick up the A Defense and ASW Expert instead. You could drop this here as well, and you give you 2 points, and then get the Focus Fire training. That's another way to do it. If I really wanted to give up consumable specialist and superintendent with IFHE build, then it'd be like, oh, then what are you doing here? I could take consumable specialist and I pick up incoming fire alert instead. I give up priority target and I take focus fire training. Incoming fire alert warns you when there's a salvo fire ship from more than 4.5 kilometers away. So you get a little incoming next to your aiming reticle. And then you know, oh, evasive maneuver is required, right? So you could do that if you really would rather take these 2 points like into something like focus fire training. But what the focus fire training does is it reloads your airstrike armament reload, which would, in our case would be the depth charge airstrike. Wanted to say it right. Damage caused with a priority sector activated plus 1.5%, priority sector reinforcement plus 25%, number of shell explosion A salvos plus 1, and then you have aircraft preparation time, that negative 10% there. But what I would recommend ultimately, what the build I'm going to go for is dropping Consumable Specialist and taking the A Defense and ASW Expert as an IFHG build here on the Worcester, because there's just so much more use now that you get the can be activated and getting our heals, radars, hydros off cooldown that much more quickly. Let's say you want this and you don't really care about the IFHE, then of course you could easily swap out, give up IFHE, pick up survivability export, and then bring this 4 over here, and you could get a little bit more of the AA build going here with the ship as well. So that being said, I don't want to make this video any longer. If you're wondering what camouflage this is the Pi permanent camouflage, so I quite like running it here on the ship. Let me know if you have any questions about something I didn't cover on the ship. I really try to keep these videos under 30 minutes, but I failed because I kind of spent too much time talking about the name of the ship in the beginning in terms of pronunciation. So if you liked today's video, give a thumbs up. If you didn't, give a thumbs down. Subscribe if you do want to see more. If you're subscribed, thanks so much. I appreciate it. Thank you to my Patreon supporters. And until next time, take care.